Hey guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back. And today I want to walk through the setup of my 2025 Hobonichi Weeks Mega. This is going to be one of my main planners for next year, along with my pocket rings, which is why it's over here on the side. I'm going for planned planner hopping next year because I like a little bit of change. But this is my primary personal planner, and I do intend on keeping this at the end of the year. And even if I'm primarily in rings, I'll likely keep this up to date on the side just because it makes a really nice, elegant single notebook to put on my shelf for functional information at the end of the year. I went with the Smoke Gray English Edition Hobonichi Weeks Mega for 2025. I actually prefer the cream color of the Hobonichi Weeks, so it's one of the features I'm glad we still have, and I absolutely adore this color. I'm really excited to use this dark gray for the majority of the year. So usually I would have this in a clear cover from Hobonichi, which is why these couple of things are loose, but I took it off so we wouldn't have to deal with the glare for this video. But I have a Polaroid of Felix in the front. I am a fan of Stray Kids, and just a photo from Unsplash that I would layer behind that just for a little bit of a festive feel. I keep a sticky note in the front, mostly as an inbox. This one is from Midori, and then I have various sticky notes in the back, and these are from 3M. The year at a glance I use pretty minimally. I underline my paydays in pencil. Just at a glance I could tell if it's a 2 paycheck month or 3 paycheck month when it comes to budgeting, and then I wrote my goals on that same sticky note down below by Midori. Printed off a couple photos for like a little mini vision board. Our main goal for next year is to buy a home, so that's kind of what I'm focusing on with these couple of images. And I did print them out on cream tomow paper, so the photo quality isn't super great, but I wanted to keep my setup really thin. Then we have the, I guess, a year at a glance overview. I'm going to use this to track several things throughout the year. I went through and added a pencil line to each of the columns, and on that line I will be tracking my cycle. I have a symbol for different things, whether I'm ovulating, I'm actually on my cycle, or various symptoms, so those will go on the line itself. And then the space on the right is enough for me to write the first letter of every workout that I track. So this is going to be a combo of my cycle log and my workout log primarily. And these upper sections, again in pencil, just because I don't want it to stand out too much, I went ahead and wrote in the week numbers that correspond with that particular month so I can keep track of my average weight across the top. I really focused on my physical health in 2024, so 2025 is a lot more about monitoring and doing successful maintenance. And then this insert in the middle was based off of an insert from Peanuts Planner Co. It's from her 147 dated yearly bundle, but because I will be moving into this planner in the month of December of 2024, I wanted to make myself an undated version, and I will use this to track different meal plan habits, I guess. I tracked this year just with a various sticker dot to indicate whether or not I had alcohol, dairy, or ate out, because I'm trying to limit those things, and I'd like to continue to limit those things next year, so that's where I'm going to do that. So this is sort of an overall all-in-one space health dashboard. These are the things that I typically update on a daily basis, so I wanted to try to consolidate them in as much as possible. And I did also print this on cream tomow paper. This is 52 GSM, so the ghosting is pretty intense, and my printer doesn't really love printing on that thin of paper, but it works. And then I used some white washi tape from MT to add this in as a tip-in. From there we have the monthlies, and I enjoyed how I did my monthlies in my 2024 Hobonichi week so much that I didn't make a change at all. I do events and appointments, and then to-dos at the bottom, and my mood log over on the left-hand side. I usually add just very minimal deco at the end of the month, a little bit of washi tape, maybe a sticker here or there. So this is kind of what it looks like at the beginning. I will be moving in next week as I'm filming this, so that's the 25th. So I went ahead and filled in the November dates with my handful of appointments. I moved over all of my birthdays, anniversaries, and known appointments right away, but anything I'm unsure of, I typically put on a sticky note like this, and then that way I can take it out and move it around, or I'll take it out and then write it down when things are set in stone or I have more information. And I went and referenced last year's planner to move over all my birthdays and anniversaries. I just like having them in here already so that they are all set up and good to go. For the weeklies, I will experiment a little bit throughout the year. I don't like being super locked into one way or the other, but in 2024, I really sort of settled into this layout of a rolling weekly on the right hand side of the page and then journaling on the left hand side, usually at the end of the week. Sometimes I go in day by day, and I like this so much that I'm going to continue it into next year. So there's a section at the top for my daily habit trackers, and then down below is a running to-do list. When you see the lines, that usually indicates that it's an event. So for example, this was back in August, but I went to Spy House Coffee at 10 a.m. on Sunday. So circle here, circle there, line to connect it. And that just helps me catch, or triangulate rather, what day of the week that event is on a little bit quicker for when I set up my daily logs, which you'll see in the back. But I think I'm gonna stick with the same layout, at least for the month of December. Couldn't really think of anything that I wanted to change or add. And I draw this little bar, like the handful of lines to create this layout. I do that in pencil just because I think it mimics the gray lines that Hobonichi uses really well. If you are curious, the way I set it up is I start in the second line and I give myself 5 lines or 6 boxes for my habits. I'm adding a mini couple 3 boxes there for tracking meal planning, and then lines down below. I typically go from the top of the page up until about Friday, end of Friday, and then I give myself a line 1, 2, 3 squares in for my master check off column is kind of what I call that. So that's sort of what that looks like. Hopefully makes some sense. I usually draw these in for the whole month at a time. So I've gone ahead and drawn them all in for the weeks of December, and that way I can populate information real time as it comes up. I didn't sit down and transfer all my December appointments yet. Usually I'll do that kind of all in mass. Probably will do that after I film this video so that I will be set up and ready to go for December. All right, so moving to the very last spread of the planner, I am using this as an index, and the reason I do it on this weekly spread is that you get 13 months in this planner, so usually December of the current year through December of the upcoming year. And since I faithfully move over early, I thought I would give these pages some purpose. I do bullet journal in the back, so you're going to see the collections and habit trackers that I set up, but I'm definitely an indexer, so this is how I keep track of important information that I set up throughout the year so that I can find them again. I think I index as more of a form of self-care for next year, more so than needing it within the current year, but I never regret having an index, so it's something that I always add. Because I do move over early into weeks year over year, I have kind of earmarked out some of these pages for some collections that I don't quite know what they're going to look like, but I think I want them together. As I mentioned, we're trying to buy a house next year, so things like a mortgage tracker, interest rate information, all that kind of stuff that I want to keep as reference throughout the year. I will figure out what that looks like because I just don't know yet, and I'll probably add those in those December pages just so that they are all together and collected and archived. But again, kind of waiting until I know what that's going to be before I populate them. Flipping the page, I printed out these here. These are from Reddit, and they are Stardew Valley. This is the Community Center by Seasons infographic, and this is the last day to plant little calendar graphic. It also has everyone's birthday on there, which I think is fun. I play a ton of Stardew Valley, so having this reference information is actually extremely helpful, and there's just some text and abbreviations on this page, so this was a nice one to print over. And again, printed on Tomow River paper just to keep it really thin. So one common theme of my setup is that I've gotten a little fold out happy this year. So you'll notice that pretty much every spread has some element of a fold out in it. So I will show you as we get there. My first habit tracker on page 1 is my adulting log. So I start again in December. So I went December through November. And these are the things that I typically do on a monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual basis. So the top section is kind of for cleaning, such as washing out our dishwasher filter, wiping down the washer gasket, moving savings over monthly. Then I have more quarterly to semi-annual things such as replacing my razor blades, mascara, toothbrush heads, air filter, oil change, putting on our winter tires and taking them off, paying our vehicle insurance and renewing my medical prescriptions. And then some more annual things such as registration for our vehicles, filing taxes, our handful of recurring investments that we do, and then paying the sales tax for my shop, which is the Ghosting Pen. The information will be linked down below. And then below that, I'm just noting down all of my doctor's appointments. I will probably note my husband's as well, and then maybe highlight them in a different color, but this is just sort of a one-stop shop of what are the things that I don't want to forget and when did I last do them throughout the year. This fold out is the day specific tasks insert from Peanuts Planner Co. This is in the pocket size, and I love layering slightly smaller inserts into a larger planner. I just think it kind of adds a fun textural element, but I intend on using this as my weekly cleaning log. So I'm going to list out the things that we need to clean, different areas in our house, kind of that type of stuff. And then I'll check that off as we go throughout the weeks of the year. This was really helpful for me. I have this in my pocket rings for the second half of 2024, and I'm anticipating that when we move, I might need to take this out and replace it if we have a whole different type of cleaning routine for the house, but it's washi taped in as a tip-in, so not permanent, thankfully. Here I have a little table that I'll use for measuring myself. Really actually handy for me to have this because I tend to do most of my clothing shopping online, and I can quickly look up and see like what is my waist measurements versus what there is online, so it's nice to have that in my notebook. Next 2-page spread is really for my shop. I have my, well, and Patreon as well, I guess. So I have my monthly commitments across the top. So that would be like formatting doodle perks, doing the monthly live stream with my patrons, the monthly memo video, setting up the Patreon discount codes, tracking new releases, paying sales tax, and then noting overall income and expenses from the shop. So these are the things that I try to do every month. And then I have an overall kind of side hustle income log that I'm tracking because we're trying to save this money to put towards a down payment as the home. And I'm just kind of curious how much I'm making across the various things that make up Lindsay Scribbles. Couple sticky notes over here on the side. This one is from Daiso. This one is from Midori. This one I will use for new release ideas, just kind of as a brain dumping space. And as I fill it out, I can replace the sticky note. And then I plan on transferring over some important reference information for things that help me make inserts and things like that. I just haven't bothered to bring it over quite yet. Next two spreads are a couple quick and dirty logs, very simple, just a line of pencil, but this will be my date night log for me to write down when my husband and I go on a date night. I just like to keep track of those throughout the year. And then similarly, I write down when I have conversations with my best friends. We're both incredibly busy, so we talk relatively sporadically, and it's just really interesting to see what strange things we talk about throughout the year. I finally moved into a 2-page reading spread, and one is the kind of usual book number, title, and a rating out of 5 stars. This is what I want to track reading books. So this could be an audiobook, a book from a library, my physical TBR I want to put on the sticky note because I am bound and determined to get through that stack this year. I need to do a little audit of that first. And then I finally graduated to just setting up a completely separate fan fiction log because I read a ton of fan fiction. So I'm going to leave myself the first 3 columns to actually track the genre because I read a lot of, or maybe genre is the wrong word, worlds, universes that I read fan fiction in, the title of it, and then a rating out of 5 stars just because I think it would be cleaner to see them separated. I usually combine them into one and then I run out of space very quickly. So I think having 2 will be interesting to kind of see the differences this year. All right, so here's where the fold out happy happens, and I would like to try again. We'll just put it that way. So this collection here is my gift ideas spread. So I have whether or not the item has been purchased, a description of the item, and then just a quick little Alistair note for whether it's my husband, my family, or his family. And then I'll write down the idea and kind of who it's for with a dot underneath that. If we purchase that idea, or I know that they've maybe purchased it for themselves, I'll strike it out so that I can kind of take that off. This is helpful for me over birthdays, anniversaries, and Christmas because I don't know about you guys, but oftentimes his family will reach out to me for particular ideas and vice versa. So just noting things down has been helpful. I'm going to skip the fold out here for a second. And then on the back, I have a quick destashed list. So I split the page into 2 columns and it's literally just a check mark like, yep, I destashed it, and then a description of the item. Next year, I will be putting myself on a stationary low buy again. And this year was kind of an utter fail. It's not something I'm probably going to do publicly on YouTube. Some things I just kind of got to suffer through on my own quietly. But one thing I do want to keep track of is making an effort to minimize things that I already have. I really want to siphon off bringing a lot of new things in, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how many things I let go of in a year as well. So that's how I utilize that space. So this here is my wish list, and I made myself a really crazy fold out. And I used a personal sized insert for this. I do have the personal size wish list insert in the shop. I think I might even have that in the Hobonichi week size, but I would like to make this a little bit smaller, maybe do a pocket size, because the way I had to washi tape this in here is quite precarious and it does take up a lot of room. But the reason I wanted a really epic wish list is I'm trying my best to write down pretty much any impulsive thing that I want, force myself at the end of the week to come, well, not force, I want to come back at the end of the week, review those things and just sort of recognize, yep, that was impulsive, and strike it off for a little bit of a dopamine hit for not getting the item. And then just kind of going through on a weekly cadence of doing that. One rule I know I'm going to implement for next year is only making purchases on one day a week. So say Sundays, for example. That way I have to wait at least 7 days between purchases. So that is why there's so much here. I'm hoping I need less and less of this throughout the year, but I think initially proving to myself that, hey, you wanted a lot, and then rewarding myself for not executing on it is something that's going to help me build a little bit of a better habit pattern. So we'll see. It's washi taped in so I can take it out if it doesn't end up being my jam. Next, I have a space reserved for my financial summary. I want to go back through some old planners and think through a better layout, but the goal here would be able to, at the end of each month, look at my digital budgeting app, pull our total income made for the month, total expenses, total saved, etc. Because I always find I want to see like our average total monthly spend in one place when I'm on the call with, say, financial advisors, etc., especially as we're starting to look at what do mortgage payments end up looking like depending on how expensive a home is. So that's what this is going to be. Haven't thought through the layout yet, but I've reserved a page for it. I have another incredibly large and probably will redo fold out. This is my spending and package tracker for the year. I track like packages that don't necessarily come out of like my own frivolous expense account, but this is to track money in my fun money account that is not for planners. So this would be things that I would buy, say clothing, maybe some new makeup items, albums, music, concert tickets, all of that kind of comes out of my little mini frivolous spending account. I track that on here, but I also use this as a package tracker. So if we say purchase online some new cleaner from the home that comes out of the household budget, I would track that package in here, but not necessarily the dollar amount associated with it. So I do go through multiple pages because it is a combination of a spending and a package tracker. So we'll see. Hopefully I don't need this many pages. I historically go through 4 in a year, but wanted the extras just in case. And I'll probably redo this to a pocket size because once again, I used a personal size template and it's a really tight fit. On the back, I set up a return log because this has been helpful for me over the last few months for online returns. Sometimes I'll order something, clothing for example, gets here, doesn't fit quite right, let me pack it up and send it back. So when I send it back, I just like to track when that money or the return actually hits my account so that nothing is lost in the mail, or if it is, I know I need to inquire. And then from there, that pretty much gets us to the end of my setups. I'm trying to debate on leaving myself like 3 or 4 pages before doing my December monthly setup, but I'll make that decision here in the next couple of days and then get my pages set up for December. So following my collections, I like to keep my notes pages relatively organic, meaning I set things up as and when I need them. So I might have habit trackers mixed in with daily logs, but at the beginning of each month, I typically will do some sort of daily habit tracker, and then I'll follow that with my daily logs. I am a huge fan of a daily log, and I set one up every single day. I usually do it the night before, and then kind of use that real time. Once I get to the end of the day, I'll set up my daily for the following day. And I don't count out pages for my dailies. I just kind of use pages as and when I need them. So for example, I've got all of these dailies and then decided I wanted a little tracker for something. So I set that up and then continued on with dailies from there. So they're kind of all mixed in, and I don't really separate other than I try to with these trackers that I set up. These are things that I've used year over year, and I find it a little bit helpful to group those things together as much as possible just to help me with object permanence, to be be honest. It keeps me on track. So I might leave just a handful of pages to see what else kind of adds up, but I can always pop those back into the December pages over here as well if needed, so it's okay. And when in doubt, I tab them off and I'll make it work. So there are a few pages in the back that I am going to be using. So the first one I plan on using is the favorites page. I'm going to use this to do mini reviews of concerts and movies, plays, any kind of media that I go somewhere to consume. So I know we've got some tickets for a couple concerts next year, so I'll come in and just rate them out of 5 stars and write down some of my favorite things. We very rarely go see movies in the theater, so if I go do that, I will log that in here as well. And I don't anticipate going to more than 12 of them in a year, so I think that should be plenty of space. The My 100, I'm going to do the same thing this year that I did last year, which is use this as my soundtrack log. So at the end of each month, I'm going to review my likes playlist and then just transfer over the approximately 8 songs per month that I want to note down at the end of the year. I got this idea originally from Untitled Paintings over here on YouTube, so I'll put her channel in the description box if you want to check her videos out. The next one I'm definitely going to use is the 365 checkoff sheet, and if you got the Japanese planner and you do want this habit tracker, you can get them on Hobonichi's website. Just as a heads up, you can print them off. This is probably my favorite thing and the main reason I go with the English edition every year is because I love this tracker. I find it to be so satisfying. So this is where I'm going to track my overall planner specific low buy. So I printed off another check register just specifically for tracking planner purchases. It's the same thing as my normal spending log, but just one sheet, and I put myself on for me, a strict budget, and that number is all I get for the year. And then I found this online. It is by SaturdayGift.com, and this is the date to the day of the year. So for example, July 1st is day 182 of the year, and then that way I can just sort of cross-reference, because usually for my checkoff page this year I was able to use the dailies in my Hobonichi Cousin to quickly tell myself what day of the year it is, but I will be using a Sterling Ink Common Planner next year versus a Hobonichi Cousin, so I wanted a reference in case I do get a couple days behind, which is pretty common for me. All right, so last section is a sticky note for a running shopping list for things like toilet paper for stores that we don't go to all that often, and then a washi taped menu fold out. I have this menu insert in the shop. I'm gonna add a fold out version, I promise, at some point, but this gives me basically a quarter's worth of meal planning in the back, and then all my grocery lists are together in one space, and it's easy to flip to keeping that in the back. And that brings us to the end of my 2025 Hobonichi week setup. I will be moving into this off and on in December. I've been honestly reaching for my rings a little bit more, but it's been nice actually. I will say it that way, that I've kind of planned on using 2 things because I can reach for whatever is working for me better at the time, and slowly not feeling guilty about it, which has been a very nice change. Let me know what you think of this setup, or if there's any spreads that you would add. I will do the usual disclaimer that this was a decent amount of spreads. It only took me maybe a couple of hours to set up once I decided everything that I needed. I set up 13 pages of trackers in my planner, which might seem like a lot, but that comes from over 10 years of experience in this community tracking things like this. So these are things that I know for sure that I will use throughout the year, and I'll add more as things come up, and if they don't work out, we leave them blank. Not that big of a deal. But thank you for being here. I'm really excited to move into this next week, and I will talk to you soon.